I was 5 years old when I became someone else's face. Not literally. Not yet. But the process began the night my parents' plane fell out of the sky somewhere over the Rockies, and my mother's sister arrived at the funeral in a black veil that covered everything except her eyes, and those eyes looked at me and saw not a child but a canvas. She has Margaret's bone structure, Miranda told the social worker, her hand on my shoulder, her nails pressing into the soft skin above my collarbone. The same cheekbones, the same jaw, it's uncanny. She looks more like my sister every day. She was lying, I didn't look like my mother. I looked like my father, round face, snub nose, eyes too far apart, but Miranda saw something else. She saw potential. She saw a face that could be molded, shaped, transformed into whatever she needed it to be. My name is Jules. I'm 29 years old. I'm a special effects makeup artist in Los Angeles, which means I spend my days turning actors into monsters, into aliens, into historical figures, into versions of themselves that don't exist. I have an Oscar. I have a studio in Burbank with my name on the door. I have 43 employees who call me Jules and don't know that for 13 years, my face belonged to someone else. This is not a story about vanity. This is a story about what happens when the person who raises you treats your identity like a rental property, available, exploitable, and never truly yours. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're new here, my name is Jules, and this channel is where we tell the truth about the families who smile for the camera while wearing your face. If this is your first time listening, hit that subscribe button. We post stories every week, real stories, hard stories, stories about women who stopped being grateful for their own theft. Here's my story. Miranda was an actress, not a famous one. The kind who appears in the background of procedurals, who plays neighbor #2 in sitcoms, who dies in the first act of horror movies so the real star can scream over her body. She was beautiful once, my mother's older sister, the one who got the height and the cheekbones, and the ambition that my mother traded for a husband and a house in Denver and a life that ended at 30,000 feet. She took me because there was no one else. My father's parents were dead. My mother's parents were in a nursing home in Florida, too frail to raise a child. Miranda was the only family I had, and she made sure I knew it. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time she bought me clothes or paid for summer camp or reminded me that other children would have ended up in foster care. I was grateful. I was so grateful. I made her cards. I called her Aunt Miranda until she told me gently that it made her feel old, that Mom was better, that we were a family now and families didn't need modifiers. I called her Mom for 11 years. I loved her with the desperate, clinging love of a child who has lost one mother and fears losing another. She was a good mother in her way. She taught me to cook. She helped with homework. She drove me to auditions just for fun, sweetheart, just to see, even though I was too shy, too round-faced, too much like my father to book anything. She never hit me, she never yelled. She was patient, attentive, present. She was also stealing my face. I found out when I was 18. It should have been sooner. I should have noticed the mold-making kit in the garage, the silicone supplies, the life-casting materials that she explained away as for my work. Sweetheart, you know how hard it is to get good prosthetics in this town. I should have wondered why she insisted on doing my makeup for every school dance, every family photo, every occasion where I might be photographed. I should have questioned the night cream she applied to my face every bedtime, the one that smelled like chemicals and left my skin slightly numb, the one she said was imported from France and that I later learned was a topical anesthetic to keep me from feeling the alginate mold she pressed against my sleeping face. But I didn't question. I was a child. I was grateful. I was loved, or I thought I was, and love, to a child who has lost everything, feels like enough. The discovery happened by accident. I was home from my first semester at community college, studying cosmetology because Miranda had suggested it. Practical, sweetheart, and you have such a steady hand, and I was looking for a textbook she had borrowed. The basement door was unlocked. It was never unlocked. Miranda kept the key on a chain around her neck, and she had told me since I was small that the basement was storage for my work things and dangerous for children and absolutely off limits. I was not a child anymore. I was 18, and the door was open. I went down the stairs slowly, my hand on the railing, my heart beating in a rhythm I didn't recognize. The basement was not what I expected. Not storage boxes and old furniture. Not a workshop for background acting props. It was a studio. A professional makeup studio, better equipped than anything I had seen in school, with mirrors ringed in lights and shelves of prosthetics in various stages of completion, and a computer in the corner that hummed with the sound of a machine that never slept. And on the walls, photographs, hundreds of them, of me. Not me exactly, my face. My face on bodies that were not mine. My face in poses I had never struck. My face in locations I had never visited. My face smiling at men I had never met. My face naked, clothed, laughing, crying, alive, dead. I walked closer. My legs moved without my permission. I reached out and touched one of the photographs, a close-up of my face, smiling, with a man's hand on my shoulder, and I realized the texture was wrong. The pores were too smooth. The expression was too fixed. It was a prosthetic, a mask. My face, rendered in silicone and paint, worn by someone else. Worn by Miranda. I turned to the computer. It was not password protected. Miranda had never expected me to enter this room, had never imagined that her grateful, obedient daughter would disobey. I clicked on the desktop. Folders, dozens of folders. Labeled by year, by project, by character. Jules the innocent, photos of my face on Miranda's body, dressed in schoolgirl outfits, looking up at the camera with wide eyes. Used for auditions, according to the notes Miranda kept. Used to attract producers who want to save someone. Jules the temptress, my face on Miranda's body, older now, more made up, in lingerie and hotel rooms and poses that made my stomach clench. The OnlyFans folder. The one with subscriber counts and payment records and messages from men who thought they were talking to me. Jules the tragedy, my face on Miranda's body, bald, pale, with fake tubes in fake hospital rooms. Used for fundraising campaigns. Used for medical expense appeals. Used to collect $47,000 in donations for cancer I never had. And Jules the ghost, my face on Miranda's body, in a coffin, in a funeral dress with the caption, "My beloved niece, lost to leukemia at 19. Please help with final expenses." Dated 6 months ago. While I was alive, in community college, studying cosmetology, making Miranda proud. I sat down. The chair was cold. I didn't feel it. I clicked through file after file, photograph after photograph, and I built a timeline in my head. The mold making started when I was 5. The first prosthetic when I was 8. The characters multiplying as I grew older, as my face matured, as Miranda realized that my adult features were more versatile than her own aging ones. She had been wearing me for 13 years. I found the financial records. $1.2 million total from the OnlyFans alone. Another $300,000 from fundraising. Another $200,000 from consulting fees paid by men who thought they were investing in my career. The producer who died of a heart attack, his file was there, his emails, his threats to expose Jules if she didn't stop blackmailing him, his final payment of $200,000 that arrived 2 days before his obituary. Miranda had killed a man. Not directly, not with her hands. But with my face, my name, my constructed innocence, she had pushed a 70-year-old man until his heart gave out. And she had collected the money and moved on to the next character. I sat in that basement for 4 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just looked and learned and understood. Miranda had not raised me. She had cultivated me. She had grown me the way a farmer grows a crop, watering, pruning, protecting until I was ready for harvest. And the harvest was my face. When I heard her car in the driveway, I left. I closed the door. I went to my room. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, and I made a decision. I would not confront her, not yet. Confrontation was what victims did, and I was tired of being a victim. I would become something else. Something Miranda had not planned for. Something she could not wear. I would become her mirror. I finished cosmetology school. I graduated top of my class. I got a job at a small effects studio doing zombie makeup for direct-to-video horror films, and I was good, not just good, obsessed. I worked 16-hour days. I studied anatomy, sculpture, color theory, the chemistry of silicone and foam latex and gelatin. I learned to create faces from nothing, to age young actors, to de-age old ones, to transform a person's entire identity with brushes and prosthetics, and the understanding that the face is not who we are, it is simply the mask we wear. Miranda was proud, or she performed pride, which was the same thing to her. She told her friends about her talented daughter. She came to my early film sets, bringing coffee, touching my arm, smiling at the crew with my face still fresh in her memory. She didn't know that every prosthetic I applied, every transformation I created was practice for something else. She didn't know that I had copied her files. That I had the photographs, the financial records, the emails, the proof of what she had done. That I had stored them in 3 locations, encrypted, backed up, ready for the moment when I would need them. I worked my way up. Small films to bigger films. Television to streaming to theatrical releases. I built a reputation, Jules Chen, the magician, the woman who can turn anyone into anyone. I won awards. I got offers from major studios. I started my own company at 26, with investors who didn't know my history and employees who thought my perfectionism was ambition rather than obsession. And all the while I watched Miranda. She was aging. 7 to 4 now, her own face collapsing despite the fillers and the lifts and the treatments that cost more than my first apartment. Her acting career had ended years ago, too old for Neighbor #2, too unknown for character roles. Her only fans had dried up, the market wanted authenticity, or the performance of authenticity, and Miranda could no longer pass for 29 even with the best prosthetics. She was in debt. The house, my mother's house, the one Miranda had bought with money from Jules the tragedy, was mortgaged to the roof. She had burned through the blackmail money, the fundraising scams, the savings from her actual acting work. She was alone, desperate, and exactly where I needed her to be. I came to her on a Sunday. I brought flowers. I called her mom for the first time in years, and I watched her face light up with the particular hunger of a narcissist who believes her supply has returned. I want to make you a documentary, I said, about your career, about how you raised me, about the makeup you taught me, the craft, the art, the legacy. Hollywood is finally telling women's stories. Older women's stories. I have a producer interested, a real one from Netflix. Miranda's eyes filled with tears, real tears or real enough. Oh, Jules, I always knew you'd come back to me. I always knew you understood. I understand everything, I said, and I smiled. The documentary took 6 months to film. Real crew. Real director, a woman named Sarah who had won an Emmy for a true crime series, and who thought this was a redemption story about intergenerational female artistry. Real budget, funded entirely by me, with no studio involvement, no distribution deal, no strings attached except the ones I was tying. We filmed Miranda in her house, in her element, surrounded by the memorabilia of a career that had never quite happened. We filmed her teaching me makeup techniques, the way I taught you when you were little, sweetheart, while I nodded and smiled and remembered the nights she had pressed alginate molds to my sleeping face. We filmed her talking about my mother, about the plane crash, about the blessing of finding each other in grief. And we filmed the basement. For archival purposes, I told the director. For Brawl. Sarah didn't question it. She thought the basement was charming, a real artist's workshop so authentic. I filmed everything, the molds, the prosthetics. The computer which I had discovered and presented to Miranda as a surprise. Look, Mom, I found your old files. Let's go through them together for the documentary. I filmed her face as she scrolled through folders she thought I had never seen, her expressions shifting from nostalgia to panic to desperate performance. These are just old projects, she stammered, character studies. For auditions, of course, I said, I understand. I understood everything. The premiere was not at a film festival, it was not on Netflix. It was in a theater in downtown Los Angeles, a 300-seat venue I had rented myself, with an audience I had curated carefully, journalists, industry figures, activists, and in the front row, Miranda, wearing a dress she couldn't afford and a smile that was starting to crack. The documentary began normally. Miranda's early career, her struggle, her decision to raise her orphan niece. The tender moments, the teaching, the bond between aunt and adopted daughter. The audience watched, some dabbing their eyes as Miranda described the night she told 5-year-old Jules that her parents were with the Angels. And then, at the 40-minute mark, the film cut to black. The screen filled with text. The following footage was not included in the original edit. It was added by the filmmaker, Jules Chen, who believes that the full truth is the only truth worth telling. The audience shifted. Miranda sat up straighter. I stood from my seat in the back of the theater and walked to the stage. I was wearing a dress, black, simple, expensive. My hair was pulled back. My face was bare, no makeup, no prosthetics. Just my skin, my pores, my real features, exposed for the first time in years to an audience of strangers. Miranda taught me that the face is a lie, I said, my voice amplified through the theater's sound system. She taught me that anyone can be anyone, if you have the skill and the silicone and the willingness to erase yourself. What she forgot to teach me is that the lie only works if the person behind the mask stays invisible. I reached up and touched my face. My fingers found the edge of the prosthetic, invisible to the audience, seamless. The product of 20 years of practice, and I began to peel. It came off slowly. Not like a mask in a movie, not in one dramatic gesture, but carefully, precisely, the way I had learned to remove prosthetics without damaging the skin beneath. The audience gasped. Miranda made a sound, a strangled cry, a denial, the sound of a woman watching her entire life unravel. Under the first prosthetic was another face. Not mine. Jules the innocent, rounder, younger, with wide eyes and a trembling smile. I removed that one too, revealing Jules the temptress with sharper cheekbones and painted lips. Then Jules the tragedy, pale and bald and hollow-eyed. Then Jules the ghost, white and waxen and dead. Each face I removed, I placed on a stand at the edge of the stage. 5 faces. 6. 7. The characters Miranda had created, the lives she had lived through my skin, displayed like trophies of a war no one knew had been fought. And finally, under the last prosthetic, the face of Miranda herself, aged 4 to 5, the face she had worn when she started. When she first decided that my features were more useful than her own, I found my own face. My real face. Round, snub-nosed, eyes too far apart, the face of my father. The face that had been hidden for 13 years under layers of someone else's ambition. I looked at the audience. I looked at Miranda, who was standing now, her hands over her mouth, her body shaking. I looked at the screen behind me where the photographs from the basement were now projected. The OnlyFans images, the fundraising scams, the blackmail emails, the death of the producer, the $1.2 million in payments made to a face that was not the face of the person cashing the checks. My name is Jules Chen, I said. For 13 years, my aunt wore my face. She sold it. She rented it. She killed with it. And tonight, I take it back. I walked to the edge of the stage. I picked up the last prosthetic, Miranda's face, the one I had worn for this performance, the one that had allowed me to stand in front of her without her recognizing the threat until it was too late. I held it up to the light. This is what she taught me, I said, that identity is performance, that the self is just another special effect. But she was wrong. The face is not the person. The mask is not the soul. And the woman who spends her life wearing other people's skin will eventually find that she has none of her own. I dropped the prosthetic. It bounced once and lay still on the stage floor. Miranda Chen, I said, turning to her, you are not my mother, you are not my family. You are a thief who raised her victim. And tonight you are exposed. The lights came up. The audience was silent for 3 seconds, an eternity, and then the theater erupted. Cameras flashing, voices shouting. Miranda trying to push through the crowd, her face, her real face, collapsed and ancient and utterly hers, contorted in a rage that was finally fully authentic. I stood on the stage and I watched her fall. And for the first time in 24 years, I felt my own face. Every muscle, every expression, every truth that had been hidden under silicone and performance and the desperate need to be loved by the woman who had made me a mask. The aftermath was faster than I expected. Miranda was arrested within 48 hours. Fraud, extortion, identity theft. And thanks to a law I had lobbied for quietly over the past 3 years, facial identity theft of a minor, a new statute that carried a mandatory minimum of 15 years. The producer's death was reopened as a manslaughter investigation. The men who had paid Jules, some contrite, some angry, all embarrassed, came forward with their stories, their payments, their proof. The documentary went viral. Not because of me, I didn't want fame, didn't need it, had spent my career making other people visible while I stayed hidden. It went viral because of Miranda's face, captured in the theater as she realized what was happening, the face of a woman who had spent her life performing and was finally, brutally, forced to watch her own final act. I didn't profit from it. I released it on YouTube, free, with no ads, no monetization, no way for anyone to make money from my face ever again. The views passed 40 million in a week. The comments ranged from hero to monster. Some people thought I had staged the whole thing, that I was as much a performer as Miranda, that the documentary was just another layer of prosthetic. They weren't entirely wrong. I had performed. I had planned. I had worn Miranda's face to destroy her, which made me, in some ways, no better than she was. The difference, the only difference, was consent. She had taken my face without asking. I had taken hers with full knowledge of what I was doing and why. I could live with that difference. I do live with it every day, but I didn't stop with Miranda. I used the attention, unwanted, uncomfortable, but useful, to push for something real. The face bank. a biometric registry where people could upload their facial structure, their voice print, their digital identity, and receive alerts if anyone used their likeness without permission. Not perfect, not foolproof, just a beginning. The technology existed. Deepfakes, facial mapping, synthetic media, the tools that Miranda had used manually with silicone and paint were now digital, automated, available to anyone with a computer and bad intentions. The law had not caught up. The law might never catch up. But I could build a wall, a small one, a flawed one. But a wall. The Face Bank launched a year after the premiere. We had 10,000 users in the first month. 100,000 by the end of the year. Mostly women, mostly young. Mostly people who had discovered their faces on websites they had never visited, in videos they had never made, in lives they had never lived. I hired a staff. I trained them myself, and I made sure that every person who walked through our doors understood the same thing I had learned in Miranda's basement. Your face is not public property. Your identity is not a resource. And the person who treats you like a mask is not family, they are a thief with good lighting. I'm Jules. I'm 30 years old. I'm sitting in my studio when a girl comes in, 17, shaking, clutching a phone like it's evidence of a crime. Which it is. Her name is Leela. Her mother was an actress in the 90s, not famous, but known, with a face that casting directors remembered. Her mother's ex-manager had been selling deepfakes of her for a decade. Leela's face, aged down, placed on adult bodies, used in videos that Leela didn't know existed until a classmate sent her a link. I don't know what to do, Leela says. Her voice is small. Broken. The voice of a girl who has just discovered that her face has been living a life without her. My mom says to ignore it, that it'll go away, that no one cares about someone like me. I hand her a mirror, not a phone, a real mirror framed in silver, heavy in her hands. Look, I say. She looks. She sees her face, round, young, terrified, real. Your face is not yours because it's pretty, I tell her. It's yours because it's the place where you live. No one can rent that place without your permission, not your mother's manager, not an algorithm, not a man with a computer. This is your face, this is your name, and this, I tap the mirror, is your truth, everything else is makeup. Leela doesn't smile, not yet, but she holds the mirror tighter, she looks longer, and I see something shift in her eyes, the same shift I felt on that stage, peeling off face after face until I found my own underneath. Can you help me, she asks. I nod. I can help you find your face. I can help you prove it's yours. I can help you build a door that locks behind you. But I can't live in your skin for you. No one can, that's the whole point, she understands. She will understand more in the months to come as we trace the deepfakes, as we file the reports, as we build her case piece by piece. She will understand that the fight for your own face is not a single battle. It's a war. And the only way to win is to refuse to disappear. If you're listening to this, and someone has worn your face, your image, your name, your story, yourself, I want you to know, the mask is not the person. The performance is not the soul. And the woman who peels away every layer of lies, every prosthetic of expectation, every face that was forced on her will find something underneath that no one can steal. She will find herself. Raw, rounded, imperfect. And finally, free. See you in the next story.